You guys able to hear me through the mic okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, that
Sweet. Hey, how's it going? I'm glad I could make this one.
Yeah,
It's
man. Happy to have you.
cool to see some faces.
yeah, I was so like last time I tried to keep my camera off the whole time almost, and then I was like, nobody's seeing me. But today I was in the
Hell yeah.
whole room. This is what I mix in every day.
Yeah, that's sick, dude. That's
Almost
that's
every day.
awesome. That's a
Yeah, the
really cool
other stuff
environment.
that you can see behind the camera here is actually the more important stuff. But
What's that, a
I just got
monitor?
random stuff. I always have such random stuff all over my office that all my artist friends will have like these cool
oh
like
yeah,
ASIO. You got that picture that says ASIO like right in front of your computer, don't you?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta
That's
show
so
you. Hold on.
cool.
So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hold on, if I can just show you real quick. I got like this little guy sitting on top of a speaker.
Nice.
The moon up there is not floating right now, but usually it's like floating and spinning.
Oh
And then
wow.
Oh,
Cool.
nice.
Like
there's like a
magnetic and
dancing
stuff or
man.
something.
Yeah, it's like the magnetism one, and then there's like this shoots lasers into the moon. And oh no,
Yeah, your camera just stopped, man. That sucks.
damn it! What happened?
Did the cord come loose on the camera itself or something?
Yeah, probably. Let's try again.
Yeah, I got these I got all sorts of weird animals. I don't even know why I started collecting these. I just thought they were cool, but they all happen to have like that category. So I got this like slug thing,
Oh,
kind of
nice.
moves around. I got like a glass frog. Oh, it's blurring it. Glass frog and
Oh
like
shit! Hold on,
found
let me
this
make your screen
owl.
bigger so I can see this. There we go. No, what?
I got this one in Japan. Then I got this little like alligator dude.
What the
And
fuck, man?
I got one of those wooden snakes that like moves around.
That's so dumb. Yo, I want one of those.
Yes.
So cool.
All that random stuff. And then recently I got this
See, guys, we're all the same. You know what I mean? We got this random
little
shit
trinkets.
on
Yeah.
our studios with.
Yeah, I've got like rocks and crystals and stuff all around mine.
And a banana. I see a banana in the background.
Yep, that's my son gave that to me. It's a most outstanding award. That's all it says on it. And he said it's for you to be
Yo,
most
Nice.
outstanding
it
dad.
looks
So I was
so
like,
official though.
That's
Like,
awesome.
"No." Well, I guess we can go ahead and I guess start the chat. And whoever comes to, they can come as they go, and if they gotta cut out, they gotta cut out. But this is now our second chat with Chris. So more than ecstatic to have you here to again chat and go over all the topics we're gonna go over today. Again, we treat this pretty friendly, pretty laid back, and pretty chill. So if there's a topic that comes up, let's try to stay on topic, in the sphere of vocal mixing. But of course, if something else comes up and something that's relevant, please feel free to shoot away. And then usually after we get through the main part, we just kind of shoot the bull and just kind of BS. So general questions and stuff like that. Let's jump all over them for that part then too. We can go on ahead and I guess start things off by doing introductions. And since I'm already chatting and all that kind of stuff, I'll take the mic first. My name's Sean Cook. Um, I go by the name Azio online, so you can find me there. I do a mixture of like cinematic EDM. It's really weird, but hey, I like making my own type of stuff. So that's what I do. Been doing music since I was in middle school, everything from blues and rock and all that other kind of stuff, playing guitar to now just focusing almost entirely on production stuff. So um, Anywho, I'm happy that you guys are here to chat with us today. So if we want to just go around the room and introduce yourselves, I'm gonna go back to being video off with my eating myself while I'm listening to y'all. Okay.
well, I'll take over real quick and just introduce myself again. I'm Chris, aka the Wizard. This guy right here. Depending on what I'm doing. So yeah, I've been mixing for what, like about 10 years now. I took audio college from 2012 to 2014, got a degree in that, and then I've been mixing local acts in Kitchener here for ever since then. I had the studio open for about six of the 9, 10 years here, and then shit broke apart, so I stopped for a year and then started doing it privately with an artist, Lil White Lie. And then him and Righteous, actually, a couple of guys there. And then it developed into all of this over like getting into the X community and meeting Amar, who was supposed to be here. I don't know if he'll show up. Maybe he will. I don't know. We'll see. but yeah, I got into the X community, and then we've made all this happen since then. So, and I can't wait for more to happen. So, that's a little bit about me. Who wants to go
Well,
next?
I'll go next, I guess, if no one else is speaking up. Hey guys, I'm Timothy Stockton. I go by Cy Demica. This is like my third name. I've been working on uh, things like that, but doing real serious stuff with this name. But I mostly do like wook bass or like psychedelic kind of froggy wet bass stuff is like my favorite. But I've been doing more, trying to do a little more cinematic with like organic sounds lately. And I do video editing and like I work with Blender and make animations and stuff. So I have 2 music videos out that I animated right now. I'm working on a series of 8 for the album. That's the gist of it, I guess. But hello.
Yo, I need your help later.
Sure.
Yo, I want to animate this guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it should
Like
be.
a flat 2D animation or
I don't know, something. We'll talk.
yeah, we can figure something out.
Yeah, dude, that's dope. Awesome. Well, great that you're here. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Coming, yeah. Hopefully you learned something amazing from it.
I'm
That's
sure I will.
it. How about you, Mike? Or Julia? Either one.
You're gonna have to force one.
I don't know. Winter Queen. Who's up? Winter Queen. Shout out to Winter Queen for being here. She's a friend of the group here from King Brown Cow.
Yeah, awesome.
Hey,
Yo, how's it going?
it's going.
I'm
It's
glad you
going
could
pretty
be.
good. Me
Tell us
too.
about yourself a
Thank
little
you.
bit.
So I'm just kind of hanging out. I'm with the KBC up here.
Yeah.
We did our
Tell
little,
them what's up for
party
me.
thing. Yeah, we did our little party thing. Yesterday we got a lot of content, some really cool music videos. But yeah, I'm learning, honestly. I've been in the music thing with him this whole time. So my thing is engineering and managing. So learning all of the things as well, like brand new, just an FYI. I just mixed and mastered Love Season, which is his last album that he dropped in February. But
Yeah, it's dope.
you guys go listen, it's super dope. But yes, that's me.
Thanks for being here. I hope you learned
Absolutely.
something too. It's gonna be amazing. We'll
Oh
go
yeah, I
through
got my
a
pen
bunch of
and
stuff.
paper.
Yeah, I brought a hip hop session here today with White Lies, so I asked his
Beautiful.
permission ahead of time so I could show you all it.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it should be good. We'll go through a whole bunch of different things of my approach to mixing vocals and all that. And Mike's got some stuff to say every time about analog stuff too. He's a fan of like boxes, physical analog gear. So I use all digital stuff when I do my work mostly, but maybe he has a thing or two he can offer for that when he comes on too.
Yeah, I'm just checking the chats. He's saying he's in and out of the room. Just
Oh, is he?
yeah, just going ahead and skip him for now.
Oh yeah, he's eating or something, I think, right?
Oh yeah, he might be. He might be.
Yeah,
Okay,
he said he
Julia.
had a sub, I think.
That's right. Well,
Julia. Oh,
I just inhaled mine, so there's no excuse.
okay, Julia, go ahead. Julia's my sister, actually. She's just helping me with some stream stuff and like my tech assistant before this. So she came on this call just to see the format of this today because I've been talking about it all for the last 2 weeks. So
It feels like a podcast.
oh, wonderful. But yeah, Julia, if you want to introduce yourself real quick, I don't know, just say a thing or two.
I don't know what you want me to say.
She's like gonna be an OBS master soon, so she's gonna be able to run my streams on the side, like behind the scenes too.
Awesome.
What happens with this? Yeah. But yeah, so she came to see the format and see how I perform in one of these and all that stuff. Maybe she doesn't want to run it for me if I suck.
Yeah,
You know
no
what I mean?
pressure, right? No pressure.
So yeah. But yeah, let's get into vocal mixing then, shall we?
Heck yeah.
I was gonna ask you all first, what do you want to learn about vocal mixing the most? Like what is the hardest things for you to do when mixing vocals?
The
I'll make
hardest
sure
thing
I
for me,
cover
if I could jump in, is getting the vocals, like I don't know if tone is the right word, just the vibe of the vocals to match the vibe of the song. I feel like whenever I do vocals, it'll often stick out, not necessarily in like a crazy bad way, but like it just won't fit, it'll yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make sure. I think I got a lot of things that touch on that and just in general too. So yeah,
Cool.
that'll be great. Anything else?
Me, I will say the frequencies and making sure those are good for the ear.
Okay.
Sorry about
Which
that.
I mean, that's kind of vocal tone too, right? It's almost the same thing in a way.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember I talked to you actually about the record, the mastering of it and some of that stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'll make sure I touch on that very well too. Okay.
Sorry about that, guys. I had to jump out real quick. My dogs started fighting each other, so I had to go break that up.
Oh, dang. It's all good.
Oh, did y'all see the wiener dog race or whatever?
Yeah,
It was hilarious. So
that was a lot of fun, man. Actually, it was really cute. They were so it wasn't like them being bullied or anything or like, and animal abuse. They all like loved it. But we were at this bar. There's like hundreds of wiener dogs there. Like had to have been almost the entirety of wiener dogs all around Houston, and they all just converged
like a
to put
fucking
their
hot dog party. Like
yeah, and they
what?
just raced them. It was hilarious. So
Nice.
Oh
yeah,
man, yeah. Just the kind of shit that you get into in life, eh? It's just the
yeah.
funniest thing.
I saw Mike said that he just hopped back on, so I'm gonna put him on the spot and force him to introduce
Ah,
himself.
man. Hey, tell everybody how you have the analog love for gear. Go ahead.
Sorry, I had to flick my mic back on. Yeah, I've been mixing for a thousand years now, and mostly uh outboard gear and good emulations of outboard gear and stuff like that. Uh, that's kind of my realm of expertise: mixing, mastering, commercial work, stuff like that.
Perfect.
He's also a personal friend, a dear friend, if you will.
Some
Yeah,
say I'm Sean's
Sean.
actual father.
You took away his bites to draw on the screen today, I see. Or did you? Maybe you didn't take away the rights. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna get into this vocal mixing lesson here. Here we
Sounds
go.
good, man.
If I can share my screen here, see how this works. Y'all can see that?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm gonna first go through, if I can, kind of my process to mixing vocals, because it's not even you have a plug-in chain that you end up deriving as a result of all the processing that you need to do to a vocal to get it sounding the way that you need to, right? But you got to do certain things to a vocal to get the mix done too, like separate from those plugins, from everything from like where I started is I just hit play in a session like once. It depends, right? In a hip hop session, a lot of times you get a beat track without like stems or whatever. It's just like a stereo beat file, and then you got a bunch of vocals to deal with, right? Other times, depending on the artist, you'll have stems to mix of like the instrumental and then a bunch of vocals to mix into that as well, right? I prefer those, obviously. Just like I like having control over every little part of a beat if I can, but a lot of times we get like hip hop stuff that just has a beat to it. So dealing with that first. So like making sure that the actual levels of your beat and everything are proper in the session before you even begin vocal mixing at all, right? So like if I can just go in here and show you right now, I have this plugin I use religiously for everything. Mostly because of this VU meter on the bottom right here. And I have it set so that when I'm mixing, I have this one set to negative 14 RMS is 0. And then when I'm mastering, I go over and 0 is set to negative 10 then in that case. And the ballistics of it are slightly different and stuff for different purposes. But yeah, when I'm mixing, I'll make sure when I set up a session, I'm on negative 14 on a VU meter. I actually have. I'm not going to move my camera again, but I have physical VU meters over here. And they're not hooked up right now. I wish they were. But it'd be the same thing as what I have on the screen, right? But yeah, you want your beat to sit somewhere around there. Now, I know back in the day when they were doing direct to CD recordings off of consoles and stuff like that, negative 18 dB was the standard for 0 VU. But I like to mix a little hotter than that now that we have digital shit and we can go as high as we want, right? So yeah, I use negative 14 as like my mix level that I'm going to set everything at before I even begin to think about editing vocals or where they're going to sit in the mix or anything like that, right? So getting the instrumental set first, step one, right? And then just taking a listen to like, so the way I do that, if you want to see how I actually do it, I'll take like all there's a lot of stuff going on here right now. Imagine all the green buses are not there yet. I haven't made those yet. I do that during mixing, right? And so I'll take a group of all my like audio files except for the master bus, right? And just like make a group with it, right? And then you can take all of them and turn them down real quick while you're monitoring and watching that plugin to make sure that that whole mix is going to end up right there, right? That's just like a quick way to do it if you're just going to do it really fast, 2 seconds, boom, right? So set that level first, and then I take a listen to the mix of the whole session, just the way it is, without a mixed vocal or anything, just to see what it sounds like, right? And then what I'm listening for during that part of it is the frequency balance right away of the whole track, right? What did I do to that? Hold on 1 sec. There we go. Yeah, so I'm listening, I'm analyzing the frequency spectrum of the instrumental, whether that's more like whether there's a lot of high frequency content in it or like more of the mid range or like is there kick and sub bass and like what is the actual if you were to draw it on a graph of like a master tone of the EQ of the record, what does it look like, right? So I'm listening for that. Does it have like a lot of high frequency content, a lot of bass? Like what does it look like? A lot of older music tends to have a lot of like lower mid bass, but no really low sub bass, right? And just the mixes were done differently back then with shittier gear, so it like didn't have the same effects. But like I'm just listening for all these little intricacies because I'm planning ahead of time. I'm gonna match my reverbs to that when I go and choose those on my vocal, right? I'm gonna listen for making sure that those things mesh into the actual sound of that track when it comes time to pushing a vocal into it, right? And so then the goal at the end of it is that I don't know, it's partly what Winter Queen's looking to find out is like how do you find that tone, I guess, if you want to call it that, that final, where's the tone that's everything's gonna sit at where everything's kind of happy to everybody and pleasing to the ear, right? And like a lot of the time it's in the high frequencies and the mid-range of a vocal because that's kind of where the power sits, right? And then you really got to listen to like a track to find out like where that centricness is, like, and then match your vocal EQs and stuff kind of to that, right? So if your track's really bright in a certain range, like an 8K range, and it's really sizzly, you're gonna end up with a vocal that has a lot of that sizzle in it too. And I'll end up like moving a de-esser point on the de-esser on a vocal just to let that pop out a little more on the edge of the spectrum. If that's the case, like I'm literally listening to try and match those things up. It's almost the same thing you're doing. I don't know if some of you mix rock music, but you're trying to find like a balance, even in EDM and stuff, like that snare drive in the middle of your track, having your vocal hit just a little above that, or where does that supposed to sit, right? And we learned and did like in audio school that they tend to put it like just a dB or two above, but you can't really hear it. You got to just kind of like do it and see where it feels right or whatever, right? And then that comes into automation on a vocal later on in a mix to get that just right once it's actually at the right spot already, right? Just fine tuning that little level change, right? So then I'll get into like my plug-in chain before, because I know everybody wants to know like what's in a vocal chain, right? Because everybody kind of uses like a whole setup of things. So I got a whole bunch of plugins here. Can you see this second page here? I gotta like put it up on here, right? You guys see that now?
Oh yeah, it just popped up.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's that like dual screen thing. Yeah, so I have a mic emulation going on right here and a console, which is I think like a Trident console emulation for this vocal in this case here. Which I mean, what I try and do is emulate what would happen in an old school studio from the 80s if I'm doing a hip hop vocal, right? So like hip hop vocal when it gets mixed is going to come back out like an analog console channel so I can hear it and then flow down to like a mix bus on a fader, right? And that's kind of what I want to have the emulation of on the actual like plugins. So I start with like my fake emulation of like a Trident console. So it sounds like that first, right? And then I actually have compression. It's almost as if I'm recording the vocal myself in this case. So I have a LA2A compressor there and then an EQ after that to modify the sound of it once it's compressed. And then another air module right here that just does the high frequencies of it again. So, I mean, if you look at what I'm doing, I'm highly shaping the top end of the S's and stuff already, right? like sitting right here, 4.5K or so. I'm taking it down. So like some bitey S that the de-esser is going to activate on also, right? I'm kind of pre-treating it for that. And then adding some higher stuff. So some like, I don't know, what is it, 7.5K right there, a little bit. And then this one does not just the frequency, but it has like harmonics drives built into it. So it does some like fake distortion in the high end to add to it at the same time. And I don't think I'm using anything else really, just like a filter there. Tiny bit of 2.5. So like a tiny bump on like the mid-range, high mid-range of the vocal, but not a whole lot otherwise, right? Now, we should probably just, I don't know, can you guys hear the track even? Let's see if we can hear this. I think there was problems with it earlier, maybe.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think you can today either. I'm not sure how I set it up last time, so you could. All right, screw it. So yeah, it's kind of hard for you to hear how I've got it set, but that's kind of my vocal chain that I'll have on it. So what we have there is that chain that you just saw, these guys that I showed you, right? And then I have a de-esser going on after that, and I've actually got a preset for White Lie already that I just use each time. And it actually has an equalizer built into it. So what happens is when you have all your settings for how the actual behavior of the de-esser happens on the left over here, and then on the right side, you have where your frequencies happen. You can change the curve of it, stuff like that, right? So I have it set there, but then this is like a post EQ. What happens to the signal after it actually gets DES to recover? So it's a little extra shit built into it to like make it happen certain ways, right? Just a little more modification you can do to it. So when you put all this stuff to actually, there's one more thing. This little guy right here, and I think I showed it maybe quickly when I was doing the last lesson, right?
It's your multi-band compressor.
Yeah, and what I'm doing here is it's actually taking like a certain sound of the S out of it. Like it's treating like from 2 to 4.5, 6K somewhere in that area, and it's dipping only when the S's are happening because I got the other 3 bands of the multiband shut off. So it's almost like another de-esser that kind of it's almost more like a dynamic EQ. It's only happening sometimes.
Yeah.
If the right,
How
it's
do you,
almost like a re-de-esser if the de-esser didn't do its job.
how are you triggering it to kick in?
Literally just on the track. It's
Oh,
just
just
kind of
automation?
yeah, you have like a threshold, you just drop on top of it and then go for it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's usually my vocal chain on this guy's track. Now I do use Vocal Rider on this man. I'm not a proponent of always using Vocal Rider though, depending on the content that you're working on. Now, I have this Vocal Rider set a very specific way for his vocal right now, right? But it doesn't always work well and you hear it. So it's almost like a bad setting on a compressor if it's not set right, right?
Hmm.
So I mean, it does a good job leveling for his vocal, but other stuff that I mix, I don't use it on. I'll just like ride a fader for that. What was I gonna say next? Any questions at this point? I'm sure I went through a whole bunch of shit without realizing it.
Oh, actually, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but Tim actually gave a shout out saying that he's got a track he's working on right now. That he's actually focusing on mixing the vocals right now. So if we want to evolve the conversation and start maybe seeing his vocal chain, talking to him about it, and maybe some recommendations or something like that that he may have,
That's
that
pretty
maybe
cool.
you have for him, maybe we could do that too.
Yeah,
So
sweet. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. That's dope.
yeah.
Yeah, where was I? Okay, so yeah, so choosing reverbs then. I can go over to that thought for a minute, going back to listening at the beginning of a session when you're going to mix. So you're going to choose your reverbs based on what that mix sounds like too. So in this one, I ended up with a studio reverb inside of this plugin here, the Verb Suite one from Slate. And it like, I don't use it actually today. I don't think I've put that patch in for a long time, but at the time I was just vibing with the track in that way, and that's the sound that I liked for it, right? And what I do is I'll bring up a reverb and then send to it on a track, but then I'll juice it way up just to really hear what it sounds like, right? And then I'm comparing that to the frequency spectrum of the track as well. And then kind of like cycling through some of my favorite ones that I like to choose often and seeing which ones best match the track at that point, right? And so like today, I'm not even doing it was the funniest thing because I opened up this track. It was actually, I had to go back. I asked White for permission to use a track and he suggested a few of them, right? And the one that I chose is like, I think 2020. And it was on a different old hard drive, like before, way back before I bought like the newest hard drive I have, and then 3 years of folders. So I'm like searching for this thing. And then I go into it, and it's funny to find like 4 years ago, I wasn't even mixing the same way that I am today. So like today I'm using 3 different reverbs when I do a mix on a vocal. When in this one, I had like one reverb on the main and then like a hook reverb that was slightly different, I think, and a delay. Like totally different way that I thought back then when I was mixing this track, right? Just how we evolve over time as mix engineers. Funniest thing, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, back to the way the vocal actually sounds with the reverb. So in this case, we chose like that studio room for that one. And then I think an alternate reverb here for the hook. And it's a plate reverb. So today, when I do most of my mixes, I'll have on every freaking vocal track as the vocals happen, it'll be like a room with a specific studio that I like the sound of or whatever. Because what you get is like you're trying to recreate like a performance imagery, if you will, of like a guy standing there performing it in a space of some kind. Because like especially with a lot of the mics today that are like you're using them really close up to your face, you're not getting a lot of the room. And I mean, if you look around here, this place is treated to shit. So like we're trying to get rid of the room too. Right? So it's like you get this very dry, fake, almost sounding vocal. So you want to add space to it to create it into some kind of a performance, right? So then depending on like hip hop, like different genres, EDM, they tend to do a huge space and large delays and like reverbs and chops on vocals and all that crazy shit, right? Whereas like in the case of like this hip hop track here, I was trying to recreate the same space performance of what I was hearing in the backing track, right? So it's like for different reasons we choose the reverbs too. But then at the same time, I was like, as an engineer, you want to craft a sound that's yours too, that becomes the reason why people come to you, right? So it's like you have these chains you typically use anyways. And so I got to now like almost using the same kind of reverb to create the same kind of performance out of every vocal for White Lie, for example, right? Except for when he comes to my studio and it's like a totally different performance on a different mic type thing. But then whenever he's on his SM7B that he always sends me in his tracks, I recreate the same space for it, regardless of the track almost now as like a signature sound for him, right? So it's almost evolved over time to this new pattern of how I mix. And it's like a lot of it's preset based almost now. Like I have specific things set for him, right? And then like they end up changing a bit depending on when the track and if it doesn't fit quite with like the backtrack or whatever. But like for the most part, it ends up staying the same for that stuff now, right? So yeah, using specific sounds. I talked about that also. Like I use that variable, the bus compressor rack on all of my mixes. You'll see it here again today. It's the same kind of thing. It's almost like a preset. I literally have to have it on a mix before I'll ship it. This guy with the red that I use, right? Same deal with the mic channels. I almost use reverbs the same way today, right? Next thing I was gonna go through is how to clean up vocals. So you record vocal tracks, you got your boys, I don't know, in the back yelling and shit, right? Like I don't know, all the stuff that you don't want on the track, right? And so you'll see a lot of the stuff, especially here. When I go to do a hip hop track, I always like to, and this is actually a result of vocal lining the track. And it takes away like the spots between here. It still has audio, but it cuts all them into like little clips and puts their own fades on the actual tracks when you do vocal lining on these backing tracks. So it ends up that you have all this space of like the stuff you don't want and you can just delete it. So that's what you're seeing there. It's just like it used to be there, but I just got rid of it kind of thing, right? So that, yeah, you want to get rid of all these things. So treating the fronts and stuff of that. So anytime you cut one of these off, you want to make sure you keep your breaths and stuff. Usually, like there's some very specific times when breaths don't work in music, but like as typically in vocal music, you want to keep that shit. It's half the life of it. It's almost like I've gotten in trouble before for breaths not being there and stuff in music, especially in hip hop, because they use it as like a timing thing too. Like you're supposed to hear it sometimes, right? So like, yeah, making sure that you keep and retain the parts that you want to keep on these things when you're doing your editing is very important. So you don't cut something off and then have to get it back somehow, right? Making sure there's fades on all that stuff, right? So then next thing I get into with that is doing the vocal lining, right? Actually, before that even, sometimes I don't know if I have it in this one, but I don't tend to do it on there. If you have like a main vocal and it has, oh, is this one? No, usually on his intros, Lil White Lie will do like a spoken word type thing as like an intro. I don't know. One that I just mixed the other day was like a prayer or something for Church for Sinners or something, right? Yeah, it's not what you think. But yeah, like on that kind of stuff. So like his breaths get kind of loud and noisy sometimes. And I'm not into like sitting there and cutting out all that shit just to get like a clean vocal. So I'll use a gate in that instance and just set it to like a vocal setting where it's like just trimming off any noise that's happening below that. And it honestly, it ends up being the solution sometimes to a lot longer of a process if you don't, right? Like aligning vocals. So yeah, in hip hop music especially. So if you look here, Um, typically when I receive a session, there'll be what, like 4 or 5 vocals on any kind of verse that he's doing in White Lies music, right? I think this one has 4 to start. So you'll see what I've done here. This is the main vocal, this big one. And then right underneath here, I've vocal lined that section to it and that section to it. And this is like his main double that's just following along the track the entire time, just to thicken and make more tones of his voice happen to one vocal kind of thing, right? And then if you look, like this guy's sitting +1 dB and he's at -6, so like 7 dB of difference between the two. So it's really just adding thickness to it. You can't hear it as like 2 separate vocals, right? I end up taking a lot of the time one of the vocals and just offsetting it by like a couple percent, you'll see right here, so that it does have a little bit of a doubling effect in the center a little bit. It almost gives the spread to the 2 vocals, even though the one's so much deeper. Like the volume of it's like 1/4 of what the other one is, and it's still like you can hear it a tiny little bit. It just does something to it. I don't know.
Quick question with these. So with the reinforcing vocals,
Right.
is he trying to match the same like tone, pitch, and cadence of the original so that way it's like really sitting behind it but just reinforcing it? Or
Depending on the track. So like that's really a production move because some tracks in his hooks especially, he'll put different tones on there on purpose. One screaming. Sometimes he'll do it with pitches. So like some will be like an octave higher if he's singing, for instance, right?
okay.
Like harmonies, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like one's a growly one, one's like a low vocal, one's like a just spoken really softly. Another one's aggressive but spoken, right? Like there's different reasons to do it. But yeah, in this case, he's just kind of using it as like a thickening agent. They kind of sound the same, if you will. It's just 2 performances of it, and we're trying to make it sound exact if we could, right?
Okay. Gotcha.
And then we get into like doing the dubs where like whenever they happen, what I'll do for physics is I'll literally take this track during and just like drop it down here, and then I have something to copy for my vocal line tool, right? And you can literally just surgically go in and get each one and align each other. And what you end up with, I was going to talk about that because was I talking to you about it the other day, Azio, about like the vocal triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like what I'm trying to create here is you have, if you look at these tracks right here, you kind of have your main track out front, and then you have like the other one just behind it, well, deeply behind it, but you can definitely hear that it's there, right? And then you have these 2 out to the side, right? And like you don't want it to be like lopsided or something where one's like centered and the other one's off to the edge or something. So you want to make like some kind of an image for your master, right? So that when you're either hearing it in headphones or you move in a room, there's like a center point, and then like you're not like hearing half the music on one half of the fucking speaker and not the other half or something. You know what I mean? Like, so like we talk about making like a vocal triangle when we're mixing. So like when you have multiple vocals, you want to spread them evenly across the like the stereo spectrum. And like lately I've been doing it. I'm getting even more than 3 and 4 vocals. I'm getting like 6 and 8. So I'm like putting them in different spots here and here, like all the way across kind of thing, right? And then you got to be real careful with levels at that point, like not because it's the funniest thing with panning. the way the electricity works of it on like the way that the laws work, when you pan something out to the side, it sounds louder automatically than it used to be. So then you're pulling it down if you want it to be the exact same spot that it used to be when it was here. Just a little tip for you. Yeah, it ends up, and it's more so that you're uncovering it more because there's less stuff happening between the two fields in the phase relation to everything, right?
Huh.
So you end up just being able to hear the vocal better when you move it, essentially, right? So I'm finding like, yeah, you end up creating a stage that's like 3D in a way with vocals when you have that many, where you're like almost making a podium, like first, second, third place type thing, where it's like the middle one's the highest and in the middle at the top, and then you're putting like a couple out to the sides, but they got to be a little lower and back a little bit in the mix so that they're not too loud and overpowering that. And then you got like some out to the sides, and they can be heard the easiest, so they're dropped down like 9 or 10 dB, right? Like they're sitting way out there. And then you're dealing with, after that, once you get the stereo spectrum dealt with the vocal mix, then you're like, okay, the frequencies of it all, right? The actual EQ of it, how should it actually sit, right? And so you'll find if you take the high frequencies and put them higher on like the wide vocals, like some dubs, like you'll see right there on there, they end up getting closer to you and like overpowering the middle vocal. Like they get louder real quick with high frequencies. So if you like back down the high frequencies, it's almost the same effect as adding reverb, where they kind of back into the track a little bit, right? So then you can really control like how close and far these things get, not the width of it, but the actual like the way you hear it compared to the actual center of the vocal, right?
Kind of you talking about the triangle kind of reminds me of that method that I told you about that I've
Yo,
started
tell
using
everybody about it. Actually, I haven't
Yeah.
tried it yet, but tell them.
I don't know if it's the right thing or not, and in fact, probably Mike is gonna after tell him what I do every now and then. He's probably gonna roll his eyes. But essentially on some vocals, like if I not necessarily if I'm struggling with punching, it through or anything, but if I really want it to be a full vocal, I found that I'll route essentially two different buses. I'll route a mono bus and a stereo bus, and I'll double the vocals and put them on one on each one. And then I route one straight to the mono bus, and I have the track set as mono, and then I have one going to a stereo bus set as stereo. Then from the mono, send it back to a main total main bus. And it basically allows you to have like a mono version of the song of the vocal and the stereo version of the vocal, and you can kind of mix them together. But again, like I told Chris, I don't know if that's a cardinal sin of doing this and that. But what I've found is whenever I do it, it's like vocal doubling, but it's across the entire stereo field. So as long as it's not clashing or anything like that, it sounds extremely full. And I found it. I dig doing that every now and then with my vocals.
Yeah,
I'll have to
it's
try
not.
that.
Yeah, it's not the same vocal, so it's not going to phase like if you just
Right.
took a copy of the same vocal, right? So
Right.
it doesn't have that effect. It's like a specific comb filtering of the different vocals. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? As they
It,
waver between each other, kind of thing.
And if I get really tricky with it, I kind of treat everything that's going to be set mono. I kind of focus on more the bass and the rumble of like the vocal part, and then the top end would be more from the stereo perspective. I kind of treat that more as what you would hear from the higher end. If I did focus on
Oh
trying
yeah.
to have a little bit of variation between the two.
I didn't think of using it that way. It's like using it as like a frequency tool too that way, where you can affect different parts of it with the stereo compared to the
Well,
okay.
it could be
Test that.
garbage, so don't assume that it's right.
I'm gonna try it anyway. Doesn't matter. Anyway, moving along.
There you go.
So yeah, a very important part of my vocal mixing techniques involves busing. So in order to achieve that triangle, you don't just want to send all that shit to your master bus all together. You want to like put it through a bus first. So you'll see pretty much. I think honestly, I wasn't doing it at that time. But I commonly now will do it per verse. I'll take like a set of vocals and just put them to their own bus just to check how loud they are together. And it really helps the gain stage. So like you'll have like the four vocals. That was the fourth one there. Yeah. So if you have four vocals, you send them to like an aux bus, and then you almost every time they're going to be clipping when you do that. Once you if especially if you've mixed it to where you think it should be, loudness wise, and then you go and do it. Because then now you've like put it way too loud when you add like 4 or 5 vocals together. Like it's like a sum of all of them. You get to see just the vocals, how that works, right? And so I commonly use that now today as like a gain staging tool. And then what I'll do is I'll just do it here and then delete it after so we retain it. I'll take like whatever the vocal channels are here, right? And just like make a new bus. Verse 1, right? And then all the vocals come out this guy just for the 4 or 5 that I just did there, the 4, right?
So blind and heartless, blind and
Hey, I can hear that.
heartless, blind.
Right.
Yeah, I heard that
I
too.
don't know why you can hear it now. That's the weird.
Maybe it was just that one.
I made a
clip
dope
earlier.
music video for this song too. They rented a mansion, like a $15 million mansion, and we shot a music video for this song in it. It was nuts. We had a
Wow.
party
funny.
for like 12 hours straight. I was like doing B-roll all day, like with a drink in my other hand. It was nuts.
Heck yeah.
No invite, bro? All right, that's cool. That's fine. I don't even care.
Oh shit. No, it's you guys gotta go check that out after. That was actually a really dope time. But yeah, so with the buses, so I'll do that, and then I don't know, depending on the mix. In this mix, I actually had to. I ended up making a master mix bus, and I don't actually do that a lot. I do that whenever I'm like mixing. I'll just like I'll be mixing along, and then I tend to just like things get louder and louder as I go. And then I'm like, I gotta go back and turn this shit down at the end of the mix. I'm like, whoa, this shit's hitting the master way too hard, right? And so you end up having to like take everything you've done, and it gets complex because I don't know if I can show you here, but like especially on it's just like one of the vocals. Yeah. So like if you look at the way I have automation written right there now, this stuff will not turn down properly if I go to just take this volume fader and turn it down because it's already got automation written to it. So it can't just like come down as a group if I were just turn a group on and turn it down. So it like gets a astronomically more complex the farther you are into a mix when you have to do that. So it's like maintaining your mix level. So it helps to take breaks. It helps to have, where is this guy? This guy. Everybody should have one of these if they mix. And it's just a decibel level meter in the room and letting you know how loud you're actually listening to shit. Cause I end up turning stuff up over time too, because you can't hear it. You're just like bumping it up slowly, right? So then maintaining the calibration of how you're actually hearing everything while you mix too is very important so that you maintain the same tone of your vocal when you're mixing it. Because you all know about the Fletcher-Munson curve, right? Have you heard of that? Never? Okay, so like when you have low volume signals hit the human ear, you tend to hear more of the treble and the bass of them. But the mid range of the human hearing is the most sensitive, right? So it's not just like a flat curve. So like you see, like you can go look it up actually after, and it's like at different decibel ranges, the frequency curve of EQ of your ear changes. So at about 83 decibels, 82 decibels, people fight over which one's correct, all the way up to like 86 decibels, somewhere in that range, is where the human ear hears all of the frequencies the most flatly. So then when you're mixing in a room, hearing audio, that level should be achieved on an average level so that you're hearing it the most accurately you can be, right? That's what the Fletcher-Munson curve is.
I just dropped a graphic in chat for it.
Yeah, it's the coolest shit actually to see.
Oh, nice.
Right? So you can actually see like when you get loud signals happening, things kind of flatten out and you end up hearing all of the different frequencies the same. So you're going to make inaccurate mix decisions when it's really loud. And when it's really low, it gets really bad, right? So like you want to mix at a certain level. So and also I'll move into that maybe on the day we talk about like all the acoustic shit in the room here. Like we'll do a whole lesson just on acoustics and why that stuff matters too, right? But when it comes to that, so then when you're testing the room to set all this stuff up, what level are we doing it at? We're doing it at 83 dB or whatever, right? We're doing it at that same mix level that we plan to hear shit at for the rest of our life in the room, right? So everything you see around me here is calibrated down to like the nth degree with those mics I showed, right? It's just got to be that way. If you want accuracy, you have to do that shit. right?
Hmm.
Let's talk about real quick. So setting the vocal in the mix, the level of the vocal in the mix. So a lot of the times, once you have that bus stuff set up, I look at it this way. The vocal is going to be pretty much the focus of every track ever, right? Unless you're doing EDM and like some instruments take over or whatever it is, right? But like for any hip hop or like pop music or rock or any of the stuff that's really vocal centric stuff, it's always kind of out front, right? So it's always going to be loudness wise, kind of the first thing that everybody's like focusing on, the loudest thing there. You don't want it to be like overly bearing and like ridiculous, but it's usually louder than everything else, right? But like pleasantly louder than everything else, right? So then when you're building this, the way we do it, you end up with this mix where you have these 4 tracks going into one bus here. And then often you're down a couple dB at the end of your mix going back in, because what we've done is we're pretty much just nailing the top of 0 dB with the vocal all the time, right? If we're having to pull it down and put a limiter on it and stuff like that. So it's already filling that cup all the way, right? And then you have in behind it the beat structure and all that instrumental stuff going on, and it's filling up the cup too, right? It's very easy for that to become too full if the vocal's nailing the top all the time, right? So then it's like this process of trying to like bring this vocal back down a little bit so it mashes back into that track, right? And it's never successful without all that bus processing going on that I have with the little red compressor here going. Because what happens is you're not sitting at the top of the spectrum when you're listening to it during a mix. We're sitting at what we set it to, that negative 14 dB, right? Everything's trying to nail at that level. So you have all this room to play with above that it's showing you is there, but you have a ton of space there to play with still, right? Until you master the track. So then when you're seeing it digitally clipping, you can kind of see where it will be, but you're not hearing it that way, right? So then you can drop this compression on top of it. And I mean, I don't like to hit shit hard on a master bus. I like to hit it multiple times. Same way that we do the vocal with the compression last time, right? We're going to hit it in like 2 or 3 compression stages and get that bitch leveled out, right? Same way here, where I'm shaving off a few dB with the red compressor there, and then after the mix, I'm going to shave another couple dB off with this guy. And then this one's going to be limiting it a little more usually, right? Again, so there's like multi-stages happening with the loudness of the actual structure too, right? So when you set that level in the mix, again, you're going back to what is the focus of the whole track, right? So it's like if there's a lot of snares happening in the drum bass part of the actual track, then like usually that crack of that snare is going to be the second loudest thing, right? So then it's like setting that vocal just a little above so that it's like the most important thing instead of the second most important thing, right? Without everything becoming too much every time, right? But it then setting a dub tracks underneath that then becomes a different matter for your different genres then. So like say in my pop song that I released, you can hear the double of my voice a lot more than in a hip hop song that like White Lie released. And it's on purpose, right? Like I wanted it to sound choiry and full for my track, but then certain instances when it's a really cold, hard track in a fucking trap song or something, you want a single guy cold standing there like preaching kind of sound, right? So then it's like we're not going to have that dub track as loud that time. It's just that you got to like play with the emotion of the listener for that, right? And it's really setting that. How do you want to portray that across? And it's you as the mixer that does that, right? You're setting up. How does that actually sound, right? Any other questions on all that shit so far?
None that I can think of.
Okay. We will keep going. Yeah, so in this track, I don't know if we can find it here.
Hey Chris, I have a quick question. Is this going to be
Yeah.
available for replay so I can like apply it in real time?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I got the recording from the last one. I haven't put it up yet. I got to talk to you actually about it as you know yet. So
Okay, yeah, no
I don't
worries.
know. I'm not sure what I'm planning with it, but yeah, we'll
And
chat
yeah,
about it. We'll get it up somehow in some way soon. I'll say that.
yeah. So if anybody's interested, just like DM me on Twitter or on Discord or something like that, or ask Chris and I'll make sure to get a copy of this posted to my Dropbox, and I'll
I'm
share
trying
it
to
with you.
think. I might upload it on the Wizard channel on YouTube and just have it available for people. Like
That's
the
cool
ones,
with me, man.
yeah. Like I'm toying with it. I don't know. Let's see. Got to think on it more.
Yeah, well, hey man, I'm happy you're doing this, and obviously you're a huge guest.
Yeah,
We're
I don't want to
happy
like
you're here, man.
charge for it or anything. I want to make it available for everybody to see this
Yeah,
shit. Why
yeah.
not? I don't care, man. Like everybody, I think everybody should just have this as a basis knowledge before opening Pro Tools or what Studio One or whatever you use,
Hmm.
Like it should just be like basic training before even getting started kind of thing, right?
I agree.
That's why we're doing it. Is really like I've heard so many people in the X community and stuff just being like needing help with such basic stuff with like vocal mixing and stuff. And I'm like, we get into like how to automate a delay before we're done today. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like just vocal stuff, like just setting levels and stuff on a preamp, stuff like that. We can get into someday. Just like maybe I can even get into it a little bit here. Is like different physics of different mics create different frequency patterns. Actually, I was going to talk about that. Okay. So then you have, where'd they go? Right here. So we have these guys, right? When we record vocals, we have like a metal pop filter, like a $200 like Aston metal pop filter, right? And then you have your like classic. I don't know whether it's like, I don't know, it comes in that purple and black package at every music store, and it's got like two little like, I don't know, nylons in it. It's like a dual layered thing, right? It's pop filter. This one, yeah, of course. See, he's got one too. Yeah, so like this one sounds different than this one to every vocal source that ever goes through it because of what's stopping the air, right? So like you'll get more high frequencies coming through this bitch because the edges of the metal are like sharper, right? This one will be a little more muffly sounding no matter what mic you use. So then you gotta like if you have multiple mics available to you, you gotta really test that against who the singer or the rapper is to get the best tone out of their voice in combination with the mic itself, right? So like like a lot of people use an SM7B for like a lot of this stuff, right? And they're like tragically known for having a low output signal. So like everybody has to put like a cloud lifter or an amazing like Neve preamp in front of it to juice it high enough without noise to actually get good signals out of it for recording, right? So like it's classic to put like this cloud lifter device in line in your signal as you go in with an SM7. It's just the way it is, right? It's crazy. But yeah, so like depending on your source levels will really depend on the tone of the vocal going in, the type of mic you're using, and like the pop filters, even the preamps. They affect it on like a different level though. I'll get into like that when I get into like I don't know some other day with preamps or some shit. Maybe we can do like a show and tell in the studio or something that day.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got like a mic fridge. I keep a mic fridge back there. That
Mike
thing. I
Fridge.
don't know if you can. It's not a fridge. It keeps mics dry. So like
I was literally just thinking of like a little cooler, like a little beer fridge, and you just go and grab a
no,
mic out of it.
kind of, yeah. It actually is, yeah. It just
Nice.
drops out of this little like glass doored thing right there, yeah. And it keeps them dry because especially the Slate digital mic actually it has like a Chinese capacitor inside of it or something. And they're like notorious for if they get like moisture in them, they just start making noise. So like keeping all the electronics dry in the studio is important too. It's
Nice.
crazy. Think about it. If you're in like a humid climate, check your mics, bro. That's
You
it.
analog guys, man. Y'all are something
Well,
else.
I mean, everybody's got to use a mic and it's analog, like to digital, right? Like that's how you get it there in the first
Yep.
place, right?
Yeah,
So then this shit does matter, like regardless. I don't care if you like it or not. But
absolutely,
yeah, you
absolutely.
know what though? Like a dynamic mic, like an SM57 is going to be a lot less prone to like moisture problems than a FET condenser, right?
Hmm.
So then like your choice of different, the analog ones are much stronger when it comes to it, but they don't sound as good in the studio set. Not that they don't sound as good, they don't pick up as much stuff to actually turn digital, right?
Yeah.
So then it was like partly choosing the right gear to get vocals that you want, right? So it's like y'all know if you buy a freaking $2,000 mic, it's gonna sound better than most $100 mics, right? It's just the way it is. But you can find $100 mics that sound as good as those. So, right? Tell them what you're looking for, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, to like all of this stuff when applied, like when you put busing together and all of this, it helps you to get to a point where the vocal's not going to be edgy and too loud in a mix. but it's going to be right there in your face still, right? By gain staging through these different buses and by like applying the things in the way I just said right there, like it's like you can't arrive at a bad vocal in that case because then it's kind of on top of everything already. It's sounding the way you want it to. Then it comes down to what I was talking about last time is your monitoring situation. How accurate is it, right? And then if you're applying the actual right EQ to a vocal based on what you're hearing, is that actually right? Right. And it always comes down to that for everything in mixing. It takes 90% of the job away when you have a calibrated room around you like this. And that's why mix engineers go into studios that they prefer and just book it and mix there, right? Unless they can build shit like me, I'm crazy. Most people can't do this shit, right? Like so it's like, yeah, it comes down to okay, go get a pair of headphones that are like a couple $100 and they have a SonarWorks profile so that you can flatten them, right? Or that you can buy like you can get some crazy shit now, man. Like mixing headphones that are made like have you ever heard of the Slate VSX headphones? They emulate other studios.
That's
So
crazy.
you put them on, and next thing you know, you're in like a studio in LA mixing the track instead digitally, right? And it's just bringing you into like an AI world almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
bro. So if you want to actually get accurate mixing, go there. You know what I mean? Like, don't even, unless you can do what I've done here with mics and stuff, I don't know which investment's worse, honestly, at that point, right? For mixing. I've heard of a lot of like high-end engineers just sitting there on an airplane now mixing in those headphones instead, right? But then applying these same techniques so that when you get to that arrival point, it's an actual good spot to be, right? What else was I going to touch on? Anything else you guys want to know about it? Did that answer your question about finding the right tone for a vocal? Like
Yeah, you've definitely given me a few more tools I can use. That's for sure.
I definitely I urge you to sit there with your vocal, okay? Take like a if you can find it like an SSL EQ that has the ability to change the curve of the EQ as well as the frequency and the volume of it. And take like, I don't know, 2 or 3 bands and just fuck with it at its like sharpest curve you can. And you'll kind of hear as you sweep that tone knob, you're gonna really hear what the actual frequency is that it's affecting, right? Like hit play on the sound and then go through it and literally move it, twist the knob, and you should hear like the different frequencies being affected, right? And that's part of like a lot of getting this right and hearing it properly is like training your ear. So like when you hear music playing on anything out in the world, it's because guys like us have already trained our ears so that whenever we mix, we're referencing to that same shit and making it sound the same, right? To our genre, even like, yeah. I master stuff too, right? It's not just mixing, but like probably 3/4 of the stuff I do for White Lion master myself, right? But then when we do his full albums, we have a Juno guy master it for us, who was actually my like mentor and teacher, Rob, right? And he came back to me last time and he's like, bro, the whole thing doesn't have enough bass. Like, just told me like hip hop needs more bass, bro. What are you doing? Right? Like just these external extra little things you got to be conscious of based on the genre you're creating when you mix too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then it comes down to accuracy with all this stuff, right? Like getting that vocal to sit right is all based on how accurate your freaking monitoring situation is, right? And then I urge everybody get more ears on your tracks as you're doing this shit too, right? Because like whenever I send a track to White Light, he was going to be a mixing engineer before he had me do it, right? So like he went to school for it. He had done like I guess all kinds of training, man, pretty much the same schooling as we have, right? But then couldn't end up doing it because he didn't understand a lot of like the acoustics and stuff to actually making it sound good. Kind of like stuck at a beginner spot forever inside of his DAW, right? Like just like struggling around, could never figure out how to actually get something that sounded good, right? And it came down to like he came to my place one time. He was like, "What the fuck is all this?" Right? And I was like, "Yeah, man, that's what it takes. Like physics is what makes audio sound good, man. Like whether it's in a headphone or in the room. This is pretty much like a giant headphone encapsulation, right? You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, it's just got 200 watts capability. That's all, right?
Never
And
thought
then
of
like
it from that
you
perspective.
know the kind of engineering and like dollar value that Sennheiser put into shaping that bitch just the right way with just the right material. You know what I mean? Like so that thing sounded just a certain way when that thing came out, right? And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get it as neutral and flat as we can so we're not affecting it at all when we're listening to it. if I could take my body out the room and hear it still, I would, right?
Hmm.
Like, because I'm even affecting it. Actually, like if you put like six huge guys in the back, it's great bass treatment. I learned that too. Density, bro. Yeah, you suck up all that bass that's extra, bro.
It's good to know.
Guys in the back, right? Bring some boys over, you get more accuracy
That's
automatically.
right.
There you go.
That's right.
But yeah, other than that, I think that's how I vocal mix, bro.
Nice.
My process.
Nice.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. I
You
really
guys have
appreciate
any
it.
other questions for how I do what I do? I mean, there's obviously more to mixing than just the vocals, but
No, yeah, of course, of course. I think just one area that I know, like I had mentioned to you kind of earlier, Chris, being primarily focusing on EDM, where a lot of our like sources for vocals are truly coming from like sample packs and places like Splice and stuff like that. Where these vocals are already pre-treated and pre-set up already, even before we try to start even messing with them. So sometimes we're a little ignorant of that kind of stuff, the basics and foundation. So just kind of learning your process is obviously it's awesome to hear, so thank you so much. If anybody has any other questions, general or not, I mean, we'd love to hear them.
yeah, I want to know what else is a problem for everybody because I know like people have problems mixing vocals, especially in hip hop and stuff, right? Like a lot of the community, they just like they're looking for if they had the money to spend on just like this, you know what I mean? They would just be doing it because they can't sit there all that time figuring out all this shit, right? But it's getting easier as technology increases. It's definitely getting easier for you to just go out and buy some of this stuff, right? Which is dope. I think like I probably wouldn't have even been able to even get started if interfaces weren't only $1,000 for like the highest end one at the time. You know what I mean? So like it's crazy what's been able to happen here. Now I because I'm like a scientist, engineer, physicist guy, I ended up like building a custom amp instead of buying one, right? And I
Nice.
ended up spending only like $400 on something that's worth like 2 grand. So you can save money just knowing more too at the same time, right? And then emulating everything. There's nothing real here. I told you guys about that, I think, last time, right?
What's that? I'm sorry, I was reading the comments.
The Slate digital plugins and how everything's just fake emulated of the real thing from
Oh
college.
yeah, yeah.
Is that
Even
what
the
you were
money.
building the other day?
What's that, sorry?
Is that what you were building the other day on Twitter when you had all those wires and stuff? Were you building something like that too, or not?
A similar device. No, it's not an amplifier. That was for like a chicken coop. So like my family owned yeah. Yeah, everybody's like, what the fuck? Wires and
What?
chicken coops, right? Like so like the new farms are automated, right? They have like power boxes that like control like irrigation systems and stuff like that.
Yeah,
In a chicken farm, they have like incubators and hatchers for the
bro.
chickens.
I never know what you up to. I
Right?
swear to God.
Yeah, so like as like electrical technologists, we got contracts to build the internal wiring of the boxes that do the controlling, right? So like
Yeah,
we're just a wire company making like certified wires, but that's what we make, right? They just drop
yeah.
it in, plug it in, screw it down, and off they go. We've already tested it, it works, right? All that kind of thing.
We got a good question in the comments from Winter Queen.
Yeah.
She asked, "What are good headphone recommendations for mixing?"
Oh man, there's so many.
Why
I
don't
use
why don't you tell us maybe a good budget friendly one for maybe somebody that's kind of just getting into it, maybe a good
these right here, bro.
one.
Sennheiser HD 280 Pro. Okay. And they have SonarWorks profiles for these. So what you do is you go on to like, I think a couple companies do this where there's like profiles similar to when I shoot the room with a mic. It'll like they take these into a lab and they hook it up to like a device and then test the frequency response to your ear with the headphones and then make a modification file to make the headphone flat, right?
Huh.
And then you run that software while you mix inside of Pro Tools or whatever your DAW is, and you pretty much have mastering grade headphones from Sennheiser then, right?
Cool.
So like you can get even more expensive ones. So this is like I think these are like $100 Canadian. It's like what, $85 US, something like that. I don't know, $75 US. Another one I got back here that I have. I just have them. Just have like different brands of headphones and shit just lying around. Shure SRH 440s. another one that's popular. And actually, I chose these in mixing school inside of like $1 million studio, like on a shootout, because I was like, those sound the flattest. Like I was sitting in like this $1 million place, like listening to different ones, because we had to buy a pair to actually take the college course. And yeah, those ones won. So, and they're only like the same price. They're like $80, something like that. And then you can get into like much more expensive headphones, like Sennheiser HD 650s that are like $700, stuff like that, right?
Ooh.
You can get $3,000 Focal headphones, stuff like that, right? Where they claim that they sound like some studio in Berlin or some shit, right? Like it's wild. There's so many places you can go. But yeah, I don't see why 100. I've been like I check my own mixes in this $150 pair of headphones all the time and it works. So
Yeah.
I see the point of those really expensive ones. I don't know what they additionally offer, right?
Yeah.
Because it's already being corrected digitally with like high-end technology, right?
Right. Yeah, you bring up a good point. Like, it's always interesting, I think. You want to have something, really high quality and everything so that you can get good referencing, but at the same time, you always got to be conscientious of what's the listener going to be listening through and kind of what,
Maybe I can show you guys. Can you guys see this, right?
Oh, we got another,
Yeah.
Yeah,
got
I was
another,
gonna see. Where can I find it?
Yeah, I was just about to ask your opinion on the Audio Technicas.
yeah.
Let's go
If I go to add head, you can see this, right? You guys see this?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, if I go to add headphones here, let's see if I can just do it for you. This is what we have available to us. Can you see this? So I've got all these A.k.a. models here.
Oh, no, I can't see that.
Oh no. Oh shit. How can I show it?
Proprietary information.
No. We're gonna figure out a way. Hold on a sec. This one right here. Can you see this?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you have these random models from this company. I don't even know that company. A.k.a. models, right? 23 different models. So I don't know which one was. What were we looking at there on the chat? Audio Technica.
Amar was talking about the M40s. I
Yeah,
have the
so they're on there
M50s.
too. There you
Yeah,
go,
I
right
got I
there.
got the
Right?
M50s right here as well.
Yeah, so they have a profile for
Oh, you
both of those
brag.
on there, right?
No, I'm playing.
But yeah, so I mean I could check out any for anybody that wants to know. They got different Beats headphones that have profiles for it. Any of them work. They're all like trying to get to the same result as that standard of 0, right? So they're trying to flatten it out so that you're hearing it the same way I'm hearing it in this room. We're all trying to get to the same fucking place, right?
There you go.
So is this program you were using, the Sennheiser plugin, like you can just get that and it'll
Yeah, you can buy it as just the headphone software that just fixes headphones, or you can buy it as just the studio version where you get a mic with it, which I actually have one, and they have like a calibration file for the mic itself. And then you like shoot the room and it tells you where to put the mic around the room and it has like a little picture on the screen, like a live thing. And it literally listens to the room the same way they test the headphones, I guess, in their labs, right? So you can buy it that way, or you can get a combination, which I have of like both, where I have the headphones and the room.
Okay. And that drop down you were showing, you can basically make any headphone
It's
flat
not
within the
every head,
software,
yeah, it's almost every headphone, but not quite
but like a
every.
lot of them. That's
Yeah, like if you look
incredible.
here, right? They'll have like 5 Behringer models here, Bear Dynamics, so like DT 990s, 770s, all those ones with the
Yeah,
ohms and all that shit, right?
that's so cool.
Blue Microphones, I guess, makes some. Bose, all kinds of different models, right? So like they're flattening everything these days. Bowers and Wilkers is a speaker company that I know of from like way back in the 90s, and they're making headphones now. They have them, right? Like all kinds of shit. All these different companies right here. So yeah, I highly suggest. I think everybody that mixes should just have the software that so that they can have that, right?
Yeah, this seems amazing.
There you go. Tip of the day, Sunday afternoon.
Awesome.
Yo, Amar's here?
Hmm.
Yo, Amar, what's up, bro? When did you show up? Introduce yourself.
Bro, I've been talking this whole time.
What?
He has been. He's been
Oh my
on for
God.
Having
like
whole
Oh my
conversations
fucking
with
God.
you, bro.
Oh, I'm
He's
just
been
so
on.
into it. I didn't even know. Oh my god.
He's been on for like 30 or 45 minutes, man.
Bro, yeah, bro. I maybe came like 10 minutes late. Like, what the fuck?
Oh my fucking goodness. I didn't even see that, bro.
No, no, much love, bro.
Like,
I appreciate you doing this. I'm learning a lot, and I know everybody else is too. So this is
Mhm.
dope.
perfect.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome, bro. Now that I know you're here, I had you like it was like this little box thing here. I clicked it over. It's like a mar. Holy shit, yo. Because you don't all fit across the top, I guess now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wicked. Thanks for coming, bro. That's amazing.
Thanks for doing this, bro. This is sick, really. And
Yeah,
like,
what else do we
I
need to know? We need to know more. Everybody, we need to know more. What is it? You know?
can I ask a question, a vocal
Yeah,
related
go ahead.
question? So in one of my songs, like that I'm getting mixed right now, in my lower vocals, there's a lot of buzzing, and I don't know how to like communicate to the engineer like that. I hear a buzz every time these low vocals come, and it's only when these low vocals are there. It's like this buzzing, and I don't know how to fix that. Do you have any suggestions?
Almost want to hear it. Like what kind of buzzing? Like a fucking 60 hertz like hum tone from like
Yeah,
electricity or some shit?
it's like, man, it's just like a really low frequency buzz, man. It's almost like
It's constant
it's
state, right? Like the same sound all
yeah,
yeah,
yes. And
yeah.
I know it's from the vocals, but I don't know how to like communicate that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I've heard that in fucking White Lies SM7 mic too. You use the SM7, right?
Yeah, but for this one, I actually didn't use the SM7. I
Okay.
used
I've
I
had
think
that
it's the
problem with too.
AC2020.
Okay.
What's up?
No, I've had that same kind of hum situation in a few tracks lately with that mic. So I was like, is it the mic? Is it the
Could just be
preamp?
the room tone, right? Or is
Not
it
buzzing though. It'd be like electronic or something, right? Like a loop or something.
I didn't hear that until the mix. You know what I'm saying? So like, I
okay?
wasn't.
Okay.
You know, I'm not the one that's mixing it. Like that's why I'm here. I don't know how to mix. But yeah, and so I don't really know. Like I tell them like I hear buzzing, but I don't know how to. I don't speak engineer, y'all.
It
So I
Me,
gotta.
it might be if he's using a multi-band compressor, it might be how aggressively he has that turned up.
yeah, that's what I mean. I almost want to hear it to hear what you're actually meaning by that, you know? Like, can you send a file or something of it somewhere?
Yeah, but I'll send it like to you.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Don't send it to everybody. Jesus. No.
Mike's
No, no.
Mike's
Outside of this, afterwards, I can talk to you on Discord or something. We can figure that out. Okay?
Okay, sweet. Yeah,
Mike
most
says
definitely.
official producers they like to hear the official terminology and just tell them, bro, this sounds bad.
You don't
That's
hear the
real.
fucking buzzing, man? It's a
Right.
fucking buzzing.
Hold your phone up to it. Be like, can't you hear
Can you not hear? No.
it?
No, like it almost makes me feel like it's like, damn, I really don't know anything because I can't explain like what I want done. You know what I'm saying? So,
It's hard to put
um,
some of this stuff in words sometimes. I
into
totally
words,
feel you on that.
yeah.
I have it the opposite way where I like take a vocal session from like White Lie or something and I'll put it in Pro Tools and I'm like, bro, I hear a sound in there. And he's like, what? I don't hear nothing. I'm like, bro, it's right. What do you mean? It's right there, right? Like I have the opposite such situation where I'm under the microscope inside the room here, so like I'm hearing shit nobody else can, right? It's nuts. So like just yeah, we'll figure it out. I'll be able to hear whatever it is.
Good stuff.
That's wild, bro.
Good stuff. Well, I guess we went over about an hour or so, so I'll go on ahead and call it
There
if
you
we
go.
don't have any other questions or anything
I
for
do have one more quick one I just thought of. Side chaining. Do you use the vocals as a controller for any side chaining at all, or do you just kind of mix it enough that it doesn't need to be?
I've had a couple tracks where the MP3 beat was so fucking bad where the bass and shit was like just overpowering everything where it's like I couldn't even get rid of her else the whole track was gone kind of thing. And so you couldn't turn down the problem. So you're like just you're dealing with like all this bullshit, right? And I think a couple times I've like side chained it to the beat just so it would like be above it at certain points and shit when I could not get it to like just sit in the right spot. Like it's only when it's a terrible when you can't mix it properly because that's really a mixing mistake that causes that all that need for side chaining, right? If you can't get a vocal to sit above it, it's because you haven't like leveled it fully yet. compress it properly. You don't have the right frequency spectrum going compared to the song to have it fit right. It's all those things combined. And a lot of the time it's just levels and juicing it too much and stuff and limiters and stuff. And you're getting like these fake results, right? Remember
Okay.
last time I was going over the compression. I don't know, you're probably not here, right?
No, I wasn't here for the last one, unfortunately.
Yeah, once I get it up, go to that one and I actually show recorded out like an audio signal before and after it's like compressed, right? And so like when you're playing with all these knobs on the screen mixing, if you were to record that audio out into a new track, an audio track, which I suggest you try sometime as you're doing a mix just yourself, right? And see what you've done to that file because it's not going to look the same anymore after you've done your thing to it, right? And you'll
Hmm.
really see how big is it filling the cup on an
Okay.
actual track, right? And especially if you compress it and put it back to where it should be a lot bigger when it comes back out again. And you're not actually seeing that unless you record it, right? I'm able to just visualize all this shit in my head. Like I know where that track kind of sits in a virtual space in my mind after I've affected it, and then it's kind of stored there for the whole mix. And like when I'm mixing, I never go over 2 hours. So it's like partially remembering all that information of retaining that while I mix. And then I don't believe I'm hearing accurately after that. So I stop, right? And I'll take a break for like say 12 hours before I go back at it. I always do like 2 days to mix a track. It's
Okay.
always it's always like an hour where I set up, do all those things, including editing and getting like vocal lining and shit done. All those kind of tasks that don't involve playing with plugins where I'm actually just listening, right? And then the second hour I'll take and just do the listening portion of it. So I've kind of already done all the editing. I've got a lot of the plugins up on my channels that I'm going to have. I've got all the shit routed into buses. Those are all set level wise so that they kind of should be where they're going to be for the whole mix. And then I'll add stuff like delays and automation and stuff like that to really fine tune all of the things you hear back through the speakers, right? It becomes more like 2 stages to me where you're like doing a bunch of shit to the audio on the screen, and now we're done touching it. Now we're just listening and trying to get that thing sounding right after, right? Because I mean, everything from like cleaning it up to lining it and shit, and then you're gonna have to like add fades and there's more cleanup, and then you're gonna fucking make it a big track again into one file after it's all consolidated and finished, right? Like all the bullshit that you have to do in a mix, I call it, right? Where you're
Yeah.
just like doing these like tasks to the actual software where you're not listening, right? And then like really sitting there for that last bit, once you've had a rest and like sitting that you're gonna hear a lot more accurately what you're trying to deal with once you've got all this shit set the way I said, right? It almost
Okay.
does the mix for you in a sense. Like you're gonna see everything just kind of happens that way. Get all your buses set up and do it that way. It ends up being like, boom, what the fuck just happened there? Can't download updates. Oh, sorry, my computer's just freaking out.
Hmm.
But yeah, any other questions?
No. All right. Well, I'll go on ahead and call it.
There
Stick a
All
fork in
right.
it. Thanks
you go.
everybody. Of course,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you all for coming. I always get nervous as shit when I start this thing, and then like by the time I'm like, I didn't even know Amar was here. I was just in it. I was just like freaking 6 levels deep, just like stuck, you know.
Yeah, dude, no worries, no worries. And now that's why I like this to be just production chat, doing it chill, just going over some topics
Yeah,
and
man.
learning and just
Yeah.
hanging out, man. So I'm gonna go on ahead and kill this recording so that maybe on the back end I'll save you a little bit of editing